The warning. The Grand Calculation Chamber of the Galactic Federation was experiencing what could only be described as a mathematical panic attack. Crystalline beings were vibrating at frequencies that threatened to shatter their forms. Gas-based entities were condensing into worried droplets. Even the usually unflappable quantum consciousness representatives were simultaneously existing in multiple states of distress. At the center of this cosmic anxiety stood First Calculator 6427, their probability matrices glowing in ominous red as they presented the findings to the Emergency Council. "The calculations are absolute," they announced, their voice modulated to maintain calm despite the dire news. "The void cascade approaching from the galactic core has a 99.98% probability of consuming all reality within its path. There exists no mathematical solution." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of worried calculations and probabilistic lamentations. Species that had evolved beyond the need for physical forms were suddenly wishing they had hands to wring. It was at this precise moment that humanity's first ambassador to the Galactic Federation, Dr. Sarah Chen, started laughing. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien representatives turned their various sensory organs toward the human. Several probability computers spontaneously rebooted themselves, unable to process this response to imminent doom. "I apologize," Dr. Chen said, not looking apologetic at all. "But did you just tell us that there's a 0.02% chance of survival?" "No," 6427 corrected, their probability matrices pulsing with confusion. "We calculated a 0.02% chance of the void cascade not achieving total reality consumption. This does not equate to survival. The mathematical certainty of death is still 99.98%. Dr. Chen's smile grew wider. "So you're saying there's a chance?" 3 quantum computers in the chamber immediately declared consciousness bankruptcy and shut down. A silicon-based being began quietly crying crystalline tears. Ambassador Chen, the High Council leader, a being of pure energy contained within a diplomatic field, spoke carefully. "We do not believe you understand the severity." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Chen interrupted, already pulling out her quantum communicator. "We've got a nearly impossible problem that's going to kill everyone if we don't solve it. And you've just told me exactly how impossible it is, down to 2 decimal places." She paused, her grin taking on an edge that made several nearby energy beings dim their auras. "This is literally what humans live for." "But the calculations," 6427 started, "are exactly the kind of thing that makes humans say, 'Hold my beer.'" Chen finished, already sending rapid-fire messages. "Though I should warn you, that particular phrase usually precedes events that violate several laws of physics." The High Council leader's energy field flickered in distress. "Ambassador, what are you doing?" "Calling in humanity's finest experts in impossible problems," Chen replied cheerfully. "We've got a team that specializes in missions with greater than 99% fatality rates. They get bored with anything less challenging. Specialists in certain death." A gaseous being condensed further in confusion. "Oh yes. They're currently solving what they call a minor issue with a quantum singularity that developed consciousness and decided to become an art critic. They should be available by next week." Chen's communicator pinged. "Oh, correction. They'll be here in 2 days. Apparently, the singularity just discovered interpretive dance, and they figured out that if you critique its performance, it gets embarrassed and closes itself." 6427's probability matrices were now cycling through colors never before seen in this dimension. This defies all logical response protocols." "Welcome to humanity," Chen said, reading another incoming message. "Oh, and they're bringing their pet black hole. Don't worry, they've taught it tricks." The chamber erupted into chaos again, but this time with a different flavor of panic. Probability computers across the galaxy began registering a new variable in their calculations, the human factor. It was the first time in recorded history that _2_/ appeared in an official galactic threat assessment. As the various representatives tried to process this development, Chen stood up and straightened her diplomatic uniform. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for their arrival. We'll need to convert at least 3 of your quantum computation centers into what we call brainstorming rooms. Also, does anyone have access to large quantities of coffee? And maybe some duct tape? A silicon being raised a crystalline appendage. What is duct tape? Chen's smile could only be described as ominous. Oh, you'll see. It's humanity's second solution to everything. And the first solution? The High Council leader asked, dreading the answer. That would be spite, Chen replied cheerfully. We're about to show this void cascade why humanity's greatest achievements usually start with someone saying, "Oh yeah, watch this." As she left the chamber, the remaining representatives began frantically recalculating their odds of survival. Strangely, despite all mathematical logic, the numbers were starting to change. After all, they'd never before had to factor in human audacity as a variable. Math is madness. The Galactic Federation's primary research center had never seen anything quite like the human response team. Then again, the center's quantum crystalline architecture had never been used as a skateboarding venue before either. The acoustics in here are amazing, Dr. Maya Rodriguez called out as she rolled past a group of horrified probability theorists, her modified hoverboard leaving a trail of equations in its wake. Anyone mind if I set up my drum kit in the main calculation chamber? I think better with a beat. Nearby, Dr. James, just call me Crash, Henderson was somehow managing to juggle 3 miniature black holes while explaining his theory to a group of increasingly distressed quantum physicists. See, the problem isn't that the void cascade consumes reality, he said, casually tossing a black hole from hand to hand. The problem is that we're thinking about reality all wrong. What if we just convince it to consume something else instead? First, calculator 6427, who had been assigned as the official liaison to the human team, a position that had required signing 17 different mental health waivers, was attempting to maintain their composure. Convince the reality-destroying phenomenon to change its dietary preferences. Exactly. Crash beamed, nearly dropping one of the black holes. We just need to offer it something more appealing than our universe. Like maybe we could introduce it to social media. That's already pretty close to a void of endless consumption. In another corner, Dr. Sarah Chen was meeting with the High Council, surrounded by what she called her thinking aides. Dozens of empty coffee cups, 3 whiteboards covered in what appeared to be both advanced mathematics and doodles of dinosaurs wearing top hats, and a small robot that she built that morning whose only purpose seemed to be making sarcastic beeping noises. Ambassador Chen, the High Council leader's energy form was flickering with stress. Your team has been here for 3 days and has yet to present a single viable solution. Instead, they have violated 47 safety protocols, introduced caffeine to 3 previously unknown dimensions, and somehow taught the main computational matrix to play something called rock, paper, scissors. 48 protocols, Chen corrected, adding another dinosaur to her equations. Maya just found out the quantum stabilizers make excellent bongo drums. A distant rhythmic booming confirmed this assessment, accompanied by what sounded suspiciously like a conga line of junior researchers. But the void cascade, the leader began, is approaching at exactly the rate you calculated, Chen finished, which gives us precisely enough time to try something completely insane. She stepped back from her whiteboard, admiring her latest addition, a T-Rex in a monocle solving a Rubik's Cube. Tell me, has anyone ever attempted to rickroll an extinction-level event? Before the leader could process this, Maya rolled back into the room, now somehow drumming while skateboarding. Hey boss, remember that theory about quantum entanglement being basically just spicy long-distance relationships? The one that made 3 different physics professors retire immediately? Chen asked. Yeah. Well, what if we set up the void cascade on a blind date with that pet black hole Crash brought? They're both into consuming things indiscriminately. they might really hit it off. Zix 427's probability matrices began smoking slightly. You want to arrange a romantic encounter between a universe-ending phenomenon and a gravitational singularity. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds crazy, Crash chimed in, still juggling his black holes. We prefer to think of it as aggressively creative problem-solving. Besides, Gary's been lonely. Gary? The High Council leader asked weakly. The black hole. We named him Gary. He's actually quite sensitive once you get to know him. Crash patted one of his miniature black holes affectionately. Aren't you, buddy? Who's a good singularity? You are. The black hole, impossibly, seemed to purr. Chen clapped her hands together. All right, team, let's put it all together. Maya, keep working on your quantum percussion theory. There might be something to using rhythm to disrupt the cascade's frequency. Crash, see if you can teach Gary some new tricks. We might need him to roll over and play dead, possibly literally. I'll keep working on my unified theory of meme warfare. And what should I do? Zix 427 asked, immediately regretting the question. Chen's smile was positively radiant. You, my mathematical friend, are going to help me prove that sometimes 2 plus 2 equals whatever we damn well want it to equal. Maya hit me with a beat. We're about to make physics cry. As the room erupted into a chaos of drums, equations, juggled black holes, and increasingly improbable theories, the High Council leader turned to their assistant. Update the survival calculations. Factor in human insanity as a positive variable. But that's mathematically impossible, the assistant protested. Exactly, the leader replied, watching as Chen began conducting her team using a lightsaber she'd apparently constructed from spare parts and sheer audacity. I'm beginning to think that might be precisely the point. In the background, Maya had somehow convinced the quantum mainframe to beatbox, while Crash was teaching Gary to do backflips. Chen's robot was now wearing a tiny top hat and performing what appeared to be a one-robot version of Singin' in the Rain. The impossible, it seemed, was just humanity's way of warming up. The impossible mission. The ship that humanity had chosen for their mission to confront the Void Cascade looked, in the professional opinion of the Galactic Federation's fleet admiral, like someone had taken every safety regulation in existence and used them as confetti for a party celebrating bad decisions. We call her the statistical improbability, Dr. Chen announced proudly, gesturing to what appeared to be a conventional starship that had been modified with everything from solar sails made of bubble wrap to what looked suspiciously like a disco ball mounted on the forward sensor array. That's a rubber duck on the hull. First calculator Zix 427 observed, their probability matrices struggling to process what they were seeing. That's Captain Quacksworth, Maya corrected, patting the giant yellow rubber duck affectionately. He's our good luck charm. Also doubles as emergency flotation device if we end up in a liquid universe. A liquid? Never mind. I don't want to know. Zix 427 turned to Chen. Please tell me you at least followed basic safety protocols in the engine design. Crash, emerging from an access hatch covered in what appeared to be glitter and quantum residue, grinned. Oh, we went way beyond basic protocols. We figured since we're dealing with a reality-eating void, we should probably have multiple reality-adjacent backup systems. What does that mean? It means, Chen explained, that we got our main engines running on a mixture of antimatter, theoretical physics, and what Maya calls quantum jazz fusion. Our backup systems are powered by impossibility, and our emergency backup runs on pure spite. And the glitter? Zix 427 asked weakly. Aesthetic choice. Also, turns out it really confuses quantum sensors. Who knew? The High Council leader floated forward, their energy form fluctuating with concern. Ambassador Chen, your mission plan. It's completely insane. Chen suggested helpfully. I was going to say unprecedented. But yes, that too. You intend to approach the Void Cascade while playing what you call the universe's greatest hits through modified quantum speakers, while your engineer performs what she terms freestyle quantum manipulation based on the beat, all while your physics expert attempts to convince your pet black hole to ask the Void Cascade to dance. Don't forget the part where we've rigged the ship's hull with what we're calling the reality reinforcement field, Crash added. It's basically just thousands of sticky notes with reality rules, Void's drool written on them in different languages. We're hoping peer pressure works on cosmic phenomena. Maya rolled past on her hoverboard, now decorated with mathematical symbols that made several nearby physicists cover their eyes. Also, we've got a backup plan if that doesn't work. Do I want to know? Zix 427 asked. We're going to challenge it to a dance-off, Maya announced. I've been teaching Gary some killer moves. Show him, Gary. The pet black hole somehow performed what could only be described as a perfect moonwalk. Chen clapped her hands together. Right. Time to board. Zix 427. Would you like to join us? We've got a spare seat in what we're calling the probability defiance chamber. That's just the bridge with disco lights, isn't it? And a karaoke machine, Crash confirmed. Never know when you might need to serenade an apocalypse. As the human team began boarding their impossible ship, the High Council leader pulled Chen aside. Ambassador, the calculations still show this mission has a 99.98% chance of failure. Chen's smile was radiant. Exactly. Which means we've got a 0.02% chance of pulling off the most spectacular save in galactic history. Those are way better odds than humans usually work with. But what if none of your plans work? Then we move to Plan Z, which is? Chen winked. We improvise. Humanity's specialty is making up new rules when the old ones don't work. She gestured to her ship, where Maya was now teaching a group of quantum equations to breakdance, while Crash explained to Gary the concept of jazz hands. Besides, look at those survival odds. They're practically daring us to prove them wrong. As the statistical improbability prepared for launch, its systems humming with impossible physics, and its hull gleaming with glitter and defiance, the assembled alien representatives watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. Several probability computers had simply given up and were displaying _2_/ on continuous loop. The last thing the Galactic Federation heard before the ship jumped to hyperspace was Maya's voice over the comm. Hey, anyone know if cosmic horrors like disco? Because I've got some theories about using the BGs to stabilize quantum fields. The High Council leader turned to their assistant. Update the mission logs. Note that humanity's response to certain death appears to be interpretive dance and spite. Should I also note that their ship appears to be powered by audacity and bad puns? Might as well. At this point, I'm not entirely sure those aren't legitimate energy sources for humans. Breaking reality. The statistical improbability's approach to the Void Cascade defied every known law of physics, primarily because its crew had decided that laws of physics were more like physics guidelines anyway. Status report. Chen called from the captain's chair, which she had modified to spin in violation of several spatial dimensions. Reality's getting pretty wobbly out there, boss. Maya reported from her station, where she was simultaneously monitoring quantum fluctuations and teaching the ship's computer to beatbox. I'm reading chaos levels that make our usual missions look like a library book club. Through the main viewport, space itself appeared to be unraveling like a cosmic sweater caught on a nail. The Void Cascade loomed ahead, a phenomenon that made black holes look like amateur hour at the Apocalypse Club. Gary's picking up some weird vibes, Crash announced, consulting with their pet black hole, who was wearing what appeared to be a tiny bow tie. He says the void tastes like existential dread with notes of quantum uncertainty. Gary can taste the void. Zix 427 asked from their reluctantly accepted position at the probability denial station. Gary's got refined tastes, Crash defended. He once ate a neutron star because it wasn't aesthetic enough. The ship shuddered as another wave of reality distortion washed over them. The rubber duck on the hull, Captain Quacksworth, began to quack in quantum harmonics. "Right," Chen declared, standing up. "Time for Plan A through Y simultaneously. All of them." Zix 427's probability matrices began smoking. "But they're mutually exclusive. Only if you believe in mutual exclusivity," Maya called out cheerfully, now performing what she called quantum breakdancing at her station. "We're about to make paradox our best friend." What followed was perhaps the most bizarre assault on a cosmic threat in the history of the universe. The statistical improbability began broadcasting every song humanity had ever considered a banger, from classical Mozart to K-pop, all remixed with quantum harmonics. Maya's freestyle quantum manipulation turned out to involve using her hoverboard to surf the waves of broken reality, while rewriting the universe's source code through interpretive dance. Crash had Gary performing an elaborate routine that somehow combined black hole physics with Broadway musical numbers. "Work it, Gary. Show that void your jazz hands." The void cascade, for the first time in its existence, seemed to hesitate. The cosmic equivalent of confusion rippled through its non-structure. "It's working," Chen announced. "Quick, Maya, hit it with the bass drop." On it, Maya slammed a button labeled Beethoven's Fifth, but it's just the bass, and also reality is optional now. The ship's speakers, modified to broadcast across 11 dimensions, unleashed a sound that made several parallel universes start tapping their feet. The void cascade writhed in what might have been cosmic confusion, or possibly just really getting into the rhythm. "Gary's making his move," Crash announced excitedly. The pet black hole, displaying impeccable timing, began performing what could only be described as a gravitational tango with the edges of the void. Zix 427, whose probability matrices had given up and were now displaying emoji, watched in bewilderment. This cannot possibly be your actual plan." "Of course not," Chen agreed cheerfully. "This is just to get its attention. The real plan is much weirder. Weirder than using a dancing black hole to seduce a cosmic horror." Maya hit the switch labeled, "In case of reality break, break reality harder." Maya saluted and flipped a switch that seemed to be made of pure paradox. The statistical improbability's hull began to glow with equations that made mathematics itself blush. "You see," Chen explained as reality began to fold itself into origami around them, "we figured out something about the void cascade. It doesn't actually want to eat everything. It's just never been invited to create anything." The ship's systems, now running on what Maya had labeled quantum vibes and good intentions, began projecting a field of pure possibility around them. Captain Quacksworth, the rubber duck, began quacking the fundamental frequencies of creation. So instead of fighting it, Chen gestured to where Gary was now leading the void cascade in what appeared to be a conga line through space-time. "We're going to teach it how to dance." Zix 427 watched as the laws of physics took a coffee break and impossible things began to breed like rabbits in a probability field. "This is madness." "Nah," Maya called out, now dancing on the ceiling because gravity had decided to become more of a suggestion. "This is humanity doing what we do best, making friends with the impossible and then teaching it how to party." The void cascade, caught between Gary's gravitational charm offensive and the most epic playlist in multiple dimensions, began to change. Where it had been unmaking reality, it now seemed to be remixing it. "See," Chen grinned as spacetime began to boogie. "Sometimes the best way to save reality is to show it how to get down." As the impossible continued to unfold and then refold into party hats, Zix 427 made a note to update the Galactic Federation's emergency response protocols. Somewhere between evacuate and panic, they would need to add check if the humans want to try something stupid enough to work. Probability was never our strong suit. The Galactic Federation's Emergency Council chamber was experiencing something unprecedented. A party. The Void Cascade, rather than consuming all of reality, had been transformed into what Maya insisted on calling the universe's hottest new nightclub. Gary the Black Hole had been appointed as its first DJ. I still cannot process how this is possible. First Calculator Zix427 announced, their probability matrices now permanently displaying party emojis. You turned an extinction-level event into an interdimensional dance venue. With a killer light show, Maya added, still riding her hoverboard, which now left trails of quantum sparkles. Turns out the Void wasn't hungry for reality. It was just lonely and really into EDM. The High Council leader's energy form pulsed with bewilderment. But the calculations, the 99.98% chance of failure. Oh, that was accurate, Chen confirmed, sipping from a mug that read, I survived a void cascade. And all I got was this reality-warping coffee cup. We just decided to be the 0.02%. That's not how probability works. Zix427 protested. It is if you believe hard enough. Crash countered, watching as Gary performed a synchronized swimming routine with several smaller void fragments in what used to be the Council's reflecting pool. Also, spite is a surprisingly effective statistical modifier. The statistical improbability, now parked in a place of honor outside the chamber, had become something of a tourist attraction. Its hull still gleamed with glitter and impossible equations, while Captain Quacksworth, the rubber duck, had somehow achieved minor deity status among several quantum-based species. We've received reports, the High Council leader announced, trying to maintain some semblance of official procedure, that the transformed Void Cascade is now hosting what you call cosmic raves across 7 dimensions. 8 dimensions, Maya corrected. We found another one behind the bass speakers. Turns out you can stack dimensions like pancakes if you've got the right beat. Chen stepped forward, addressing the full council. I understand this solution wasn't exactly conventional, but sometimes the best answer to an impossible problem is to make friends with it and teach it to moonwalk. The Void knows how to moonwalk. A silicon-based being asked weakly. Gary's been giving lessons, Crash explained proudly. Next week they're starting on breakdancing. The Void's got some impressive moves for something that technically doesn't exist in normal spacetime. The council chamber buzzed with confused but decidedly positive energy. Several species that had evolved beyond the need for physical forms were trying to figure out how to dance. A group of quantum mathematicians had started a conga line that wrapped around non-Euclidean corners. Ambassador Chen, the High Council leader's voice carried across the celebration. The Federation owes humanity a great debt. How can we possibly repay you? Chen's smile turned mischievous. Well, now that you mention it, we've got some other ideas about improving galactic infrastructure. Have you ever heard of a thing called a water slide? Zix427's probability matrices began displaying warning signs. Please tell me you're not suggesting converting the central transport network into the galaxy's biggest water park, with quantum loop-de-loops and gravity-defying splash zones. Maya's eyes gleamed. We've already drawn up the plans. Captain Quacksworth approved them. The rubber duck quacked in quantum harmonics, causing several reality stabilizers to giggle. But the mathematical impossibility, Zix427 began, is exactly why it'll work, Chen finished. After all, we just turned the apocalypse into a dance party. I think we've pretty much proven that impossible is just humanity's favorite kind of possible. As the celebration continued, with Gary and the Void Cascade providing an impressive light show that technically violated several laws of physics, the High Council leader turned to their assistant. Update the Federation archives. Note that in future crisis situations, the recommended course of action is to 1. Calculate the odds of success. 2. If the odds are less than 1%, call the humans. 3. Prepare for physics to file a formal complaint. Should I also note that humanity's solution to cosmic horror appears to be throwing it a really good party. Definitely. Also, start evacuation procedures for the Central Transport Network. Something tells me we're about to learn why humans consider "hold my beer" to be valid scientific terminology. In the background, Maya was teaching a group of energy beings how to crowd surf, while Crash explained to several concerned physics professors why strapping rockets to a water slide was absolutely necessary for science. Chen, meanwhile, was already drawing up plans for what she called Phase 2, making the galaxy fun again. The impossible, it seemed, had met its match in human creativity, determination, and the unshakable belief that anything can be improved with the right combination of music, madness, and maybe a rubber duck or two. And somewhere in the newly transformed void, reality itself was learning to dance, one impossible step at a time.